Welcome to Exploring Sacred Places. I'm your host, Julia Pyatt. Today we're speaking with RJ Spina on the value and healing properties of meditation. RJ has been practicing meditation for over 20 years and has insights into how meditation can improve our lives, our connection to each other, and the natural world. Welcome to the show, RJ.
Thank you very much, Julia. I'm humbled and excited to be here. Thank you.
Okay, well, we're happy to have you. RJ, tell us how you got introduced to meditation over 20 years ago, and what was that process like?
Yes, I said, Julia, I started about 20 years ago, give or take, and it really happened because I was struggling. I was under a lot of pressure. I was in a lot of pain. I was suffering. I had lost a close family member. I had just put my dog to sleep, who was my best friend at the time. I was in my early 20s, and I couldn't rationalize all the different pains I was feeling and suffering I was feeling, and it was all just starting to become too much for me, really. And a friend of mine, a very advanced meditator that I did not realize at that time, had said to me, he said, "RJ, why don't you start meditating?" And I poo-pooed it and said, "No, I don't have time for that. What's that really going to do for me? I don't see how I'm going to really benefit from meditating," and so on and so forth. But he convinced me to at least try, to at least start. And he told me how to do a form of meditation called Zazen, which we can get into later. It's a very basic form of Zen Buddhism, a part of Zen Buddhism. And oddly enough, the very first time that I actually did that, and I was able to quiet my mind, and I had a spiritual experience, to say the least. And it's changed me forever from the very first time that I actually meditated. And I can tell you that meditation has, people ask me, what does meditation give you? I actually say, I don't know what it gives you, but I can tell you what it gets rid of. And that's stress, pain, worry, doubt, the idea of loss, fear. It seems to just let all those things go, and allows you to connect with more of who and what you really are, and the nature of things that surround us and binds us.
Well, can you describe what Zazen is? And then part two of that would be, how do you think meditation helps us to let go of these thoughts?
Very simply, Zazen, or the practice of Zazen, you can either sit cross-legged on the floor, or you can sit in a chair, feet down, palms up on your knees, and you close your eyes. And the key to Zazen is of course, especially in the beginning, as soon as we do that, we're going to be bombarded with the thoughts that we typically have, that we typically reach out for, because actually we reach out for thoughts. And this is what prevents us from actually being able to meditate. It is the freight train of thoughts that keep running through our head. So, when you begin Zazen, and you're in the right pose, and a thought comes in, the key thing to do is to simply say, that's a thought. That's not me, and let it go. Which is also very empowering to do. But what one will realize rather quickly is that the space between the freight train of thoughts will start to increase and widen. And that is when you are elevating your consciousness outside of the realm of lower thoughts and feelings. And that's when you are meditating. That's when you're able to connect more with who and what you really are, and the rest of the conscious universe.
One of the things for me is I've tried meditation and I stopped doing it. What can you tell our listeners who don't meditate yet how they can do this in a way that they can keep their practice going?
Yeah, that's a great question, Julia. And meditation, real simply, is just a special form of concentration. That's what meditation is. It gets us out of the realm of thought, which allows us to elevate our frequencies, which if we have time, we can get into that. But in terms of developing a practice, right, and what prevents us, let's say, from developing a practice, it can be the ego. It can also be that we're just too busy, right, that we are busying ourselves, too many things that our ambition has hooked our ego with and we're trying to accomplish. That happens to all of us. So, like anything else, the more you do it, the more you get out of it. If someone wants to get in shape, work out, exercise, they know that they need to do it as often as they can. Not all day long, but as often as they can. A couple of times a week, you can build up to every day. It is a discipline. And the more that you apply your will to expand your own consciousness and your state of being, the more you will be able to do it. The pull will be there. Often what happens is, in the beginning of meditation, is that it's very difficult for people. As I said, the freight train of thoughts just keep coming. It's important to realize that the benefits of meditation come when you start to control your mind. And that's really the key. Most of us are controlled by our mind. And it's when you can start to develop the space between those thoughts, you can actually start to understand and see the nature of your own mind. And when you start to see the nature of your own mind, some of the things that are preventing you from having a practice will start to seem less and less important. Because we do busy ourselves. We are attached to different belief systems that prevent us from taking the time to do things that are actually nourishing for ourselves. And from my perspective, there's nothing more nourishing than meditation, because meditation allows you to understand and get in contact with more of who and what we really are. So if we want to have a greater sense of well-being, an enhanced state of beingness, I can think of nothing better than developing a practice of meditation. And it just takes discipline like anything else. For myself with exercise, I'm more disciplined to meditate than I am to exercise. So what I do to motivate myself to exercise is I just simply remember every time I exercise, I just feel better after I exercise. I just simply feel better. And if people can remember the same thing in terms of meditation, an elevated state of beingness, so whatever it is that's preventing us from that discipline, from that practice, same thing, just remember, I feel better after I meditate. Remember that you feel better, that you have an elevated state of beingness, and hopefully that's enough to push you or pull you towards a discipline, a practice of meditation.
I'm thinking about the mind too, and in our Western world, and maybe for people all over the world, I don't know, but we're just constantly bombarded with information, and I often wonder if when we first start meditation, if all of those thoughts have just been so blocked up, it's like having a dam in your mind, of all of these thoughts that probably only really get released during the dream state. If you don't take time to just walk in nature or go on a bike ride or meditate, so I think if we can just sort of be relaxed and say, okay, mind, I'm going to give you a little break now, and I know you need to get all these thoughts out, so it's going to be okay, and it'll subside.
That is very true, Julia, and I'm compelled to share with you what you just touched upon. A lot of that has to do with the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain. The information, and when you break that word down, inform, and these thoughts and information actually help shape our beliefs and belief systems. And all words are sound coded, and information has to do with in and form. But all these things, just what you talked about, all these things are function of the left side of the brain. The judging, the figuring out, the calculating, which is also the masculine part of the yin and the yang. And just what you spoke about, meditation, taking a walk in nature, things that get us out of the realm of thought and the left side of the brain and push us towards the right side, the feminine, the pure creativity, the connection that all is one. That is what is healing for us. And a long time ago, our society has been pushed towards everything being the left side of the brain, figuring everything out, calculating, planning, judging, nonstop. And the pure creativity, the pure potentiality, and the idea that everything is connected, which is on the right side of the brain and the feminine side of the brain, gets lost. And meditation, walks in the park, drumming, yoga, all these things that take us out of the normal realm of just thought and push our frequency towards the right side of the brain and pure creativity. That is the most healing and nourishing things that we can do. And I'm so glad you brought that up. There is a preoccupation in this world with the left side of the brain, and it's incredibly unhealthy. What's needed is a balance, right? We have to have a balance. But the odometer, or that meter, is pushed so far to the left-hand side that we're all screaming for some moments of pure clarity, elevated beingness, a connection to nature, a connection to one another. And all these things happen on the right side of the brain. And one of the best ways to access the right side of the brain is a walk in nature, or drumming, or for me, meditation.
Right, and that's where we can actualize joy in our lives, because if you're always on the left side of the brain, you're going to be a stressed out train wreck, always trying to figure everything out. And no wonder these kids in schools, I mean, they're always saying how art and music, meditation would be good in schools. Those children from kindergarten through college and beyond, it's so critical, but particularly in our kindergarten, elementary, and high schools, because college kids can actually choose what they want to do. I mean, if they want to go meditate or do whatever they can. But these other kids are locked into that school system. And so how critical it is to have these modalities so they can access the right side of the brain, which I would imagine would actually integrate the left side of the brain, so you even have higher academic achievements and other types of achievements of learning who you are and what you want to be in the world and how to live in your higher self.
I think you're on the money. And I want to just simply add to that, because I resonate with everything that you said. But what I want to add is that we've lost sight of the fact that we are acts of creation itself. And to deny that part of us, which we actually are, acts of creation, is why this is so painful to live just on the left side of our brain. We are denying the access to what we really are, pure acts of creation. And that is where the joy and the elevated state of beingness is. We are here to co-create, not to judge and calculate and plan. Those are just parts. Those are just tools that exist within the totality of what it is that we can do. It is not the end-all and be-all to judge everything, plan everything out, figure everything out. This is good, this is bad. There is no ultimate right and wrong. There is no ultimate good and bad. There's only what works and what doesn't work in terms of what we're trying to achieve. And we need to ask ourselves, what is it that we are trying to achieve as an individual and as a species? And from my perspective, through elevating my consciousness, through meditation, I can tell you for sure it is the idea that all is one, all is connected. And the idea of the self, the ego, is an illusion. And that's what we're here to work through. So we can work and utilize our love, power, and wisdom in the way that benefits all of humanity, all sentient beings, not just some. And I think the gateway, or the jumping off point, or the catalyst for all this is to get in touch with the pure creativity, the right side of our brain, the feminine side of our brain. There needs to be the balance, because the doing is on the left. So the balance needs to happen. But by accessing the right side, we will know when to utilize the left side, as opposed to living in a reality that's all about judging, calculating, planning, and manipulating. That doesn't work. There's no empathy or compassion that exists on that left side. We need to bring in the right side. Meditation, creative, any sort of creative endeavor like you were talking about for the children in schools. There's a reason why they are yearning for that and want that. Because by not accessing that, it is a denial of who and what we really are, that we are acts of creation ourselves, and we are here to co-create our reality. So we need that access. And children, because they haven't been affected as much yet, right? As most adults go through their life, they're even more and more affected through belief systems and etc. So that yearning and that desire for children to be creative is so natural and pure, because it's who and what we really are. We are acts of creation. And denying that will actually ultimately, as you said, stunt anything that even has to do with the left side of the brain, because they're not accessing their pure creativity. So They need to go hand in hand. There need to be both. But to deny that creativity early on, I don't think there's anything worse that we can do.
For whatever reason, I see these pictures of like the whales just jumping up out of the ocean and crashing down, and the dolphins and all that wonderful joy that's the natural world. It's just amazing. Like even on Facebook, people are always sharing these wonderful YouTubes of nature, of animals and nature especially, and how really together they are, and they have such a balanced way of being in the world.
Yeah, Julia, those are beautiful examples of pure joy, of pure creativity. There's no direct purpose for a whale or a dolphin to jump out of the water because they live in the water. But it is just the expression of joy, the expression of creativity, the joy of beingness. One of the reasons we love animals so much is because there's no filter. There's just pure joy. I love watching dogs run around and play together because they're just expressing themselves. It's so wonderful, right? And there's no pressures of they're not worried about anything else. There's no pressures of all these other things. They're just simply expressing themselves. They're enjoying their own beingness. And it would be wonderful if we could start to return to that, if humanity could start to return to that. And again, this goes back to that whole left side and right side. You're well aware of the happiness study, right? Anyone making above 70,000, their level of happiness doesn't increase, whether they're making 70 million, 7 million, or 70,000. Their level of happiness does not increase. I think that is so important to note. We spend our entire life trying to build a personal fortune for what? We don't take it with us. We need to access the joy. We need to access the passion. We need to access the connectivity that we have to nature, that we have to one another. And it always draws me back to meditation. There's no greater way to experience the oneness of all than through meditation, by elevating your consciousness, getting outside of thoughts, and accessing the pure creativity where everything is connected.
Yeah, that's interesting. I work for an organization called Living Labyrinths for Peace, and it's a nonprofit based in Taos. And there was a scientist that was talking to Sandra Wasco Flood, who's our director. And what the scientists are finding is when you walk the labyrinth, which actually balances the left and right side of the brain, it's that wonderful meandering path of the labyrinth. And what the scientists have discovered is that when you walk the labyrinth, that's the incubation process for creative thought. So let's say you're trying to figure out a formula and you are just stumped and you can't figure this formula out. Or it could be anything. I'm just using that as an example. And then you walk the labyrinth, and that will open up your left and right side of the brain. So at a later date, or maybe right away, but at some point in the near future, the answer to your question is going to pop from that. And I'm assuming that's what meditation can do as well.
Yes, from my experience, I have found when meditating and accessing the creative side, that is the pure potentiality.
I mean, I know you're a very adept at meditating, and I have talked to people who are of your caliber, and it's amazing the places that they go when they're in this meditative place. I mean, they can travel to other universes, just unbelievable the things that they are able to access.
Yes, it's a fascinating journey, and the analogy that I like to use for people so they can start to get a grasp and conceptualize what does happen when you meditate, or what can happen, the potentiality. So think of a radio, and right now there are literally thousands of songs playing on a radio, right? But your radio can only listen to one song at a time. Physical reality and human beings are designed the exact same way, to process one reality at a time. Now, let's go back to that radio. If you want to hear a different song, all you have to do is change the dial, and then all of a sudden, different songs are playing. Thousands of different songs are playing if you keep changing that dial, and you can experience each one of those songs individually, one at a time, by changing the dial. Julia, it can be amazing, and actually it is amazing on a daily basis for me about what I experience. Human beings and physical reality works the same way. We are tuned into one reality, physical reality, what we pick up through our five senses, right? That's the one song that is playing right now, okay? So let's go back to that radio. We know that there are thousands of songs playing, so how do we listen to a different song? We change the dial. Now, how do we experience, let's bring that back to human beings, how do we experience different levels of consciousness, different levels of reality, different frequencies and dimensions and things like that? We change our dial. We change through meditation, through yoga, through rhythmic drumming, anything that gets us out of the realm of thought. We change the electromagnetic frequency of our brain, and we tune into a different song. It works the exact same way. Human beings were designed to resonate with the exact same vibration and frequency as the earth, and we do. That's called the Schumann resonance. And it's obviously not a coincidence. The earth is here to help us have this experience consciously. But let's go back to, how do we experience more different things through meditation or through rhythmic drumming or dancing? Anything that gets us out of the realm of thought. We simply change our frequency. We turn our own dial. And it's through turning that dial that we can experience, as you mentioned, some other meditators that are very advanced that have shared with people incredible experiences. And I have a couple of articles I've written about that. It is the most profound experience often that people will ever have. The idea, the confirmation, the experience that physical reality is not all there is. And in fact, my current level of understanding is that it's literally 3% of all there is that we can experience in this multiverse. 3%. So we change our own dial, just like the radio, through meditation. We change the electromagnetic frequency of our brain, and by doing that, we get to experience or listen to one of the thousands of songs that exist right now. Different realities, different beings. It's all happening right now. We just got to change our own dial to experience it.
Can you talk about the Schumann resonance and the earth and how humans are connected to that frequency?
Yes, this is fascinating stuff. But our frequency resonates at the exact same frequency that the earth resonates. We are in perfect harmony with the earth, and that's needed to exist on the earth. And when we feel off or disjointed a bit, it's oftentimes when we are experiencing a different frequency, and it affects us. We are almost 70% water, and what's water? A tremendous conductor of electricity.
And memory.
And exactly. We are vessels, and we get to fill ourselves up with whatever we decide to fill ourselves up with. But that resonant frequency, the Schumann resonance, if anyone is so inclined, please look that up. We resonate exactly in a line with the earth itself and nature itself. And there's actually no way to get misaligned with that, although sometimes things happen where certain pressures are put on the earth or certain pressures are put on human beings or other sentient beings, animals, and this starts to cause that feeling of disharmony. We feel edgy, we feel depressed, and all we need to do is just balance ourselves back to that frequency of pure love and pure compassion, which is earth itself. I'll give you one analogy about what meditation can do in terms of your perspective. And this applies to Santa Fe, incredible mountains here, right? If you walk right up to a mountain and it's right in front of you, you really can't see much. You just see what's right in front of you, literally just what's right in front of you. And there's a gigantic mountain in front of you, and you're seeing almost nothing. Well, imagine if you could go to the top of that mountain, think of your perspective from there. How much more are you actually seeing? How much more are you taking in? That's what meditation does. It's the same thing. It gives you a perspective that you cannot have when you're just in the realm of thought. It is the most nourishing and fulfilling thing that anyone can do, in my opinion, is to have a meditative practice, drops your frequency. And not meditating keeps you down low. Let's raise our consciousness. Let's raise our awareness. Let's do it together. Let's do it for each other. What's better than that? What's better than doing it for each other?
Finally, how about just a quick refresher on, for the beginning meditator, what should we do? How do we keep going? And thanks. Thanks, RJ, for being with us today.
It has been my sincere pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Julia. What I suggest for people where this is going to be new, I suggest Zazen. Get yourself, whether you're going to sit cross-legged on the floor, or my preference is to sit in a chair, feet flat against the ground, your palms up, resting at the top of your knees, and your back straight and supported by a chair. Close your eyes. Concentrate on your breath, inhaling the prana, the life force, the energy that exists and binds us. Inhale that and exhale your doubts and your fears. Inhale the life force, the prana of all that exists, the possible possibilities, pure potentiality, pure creativity. Inhale that with your diaphragm. Exhale all your doubts, fears, and worries. Just start doing that. Thoughts will pop into your head. When they do, say this: that's a thought, that's not me, and let it go. Repeat that as the thoughts come in. That's a thought, that is not me, and let it go. And back to your breathing. And what will happen, I'm actually slipping into it, I take one breath, it starts to happen to me. So what will happen is the space between those thoughts will become wider and larger, as I said earlier in our conversation. It is that space between the thoughts is meditation, is the special form of concentration. And I can tell you from my own experience, it is that space between the thoughts that all the mysteries of who and what you are and the universe itself will reveal itself if you are disciplined enough to sit every day. Start with 2 minutes. Start with 2 minutes. Then build up to, say, 5 minutes. Then 10. Then 20. Then an hour. And once you're at an hour or two, you're ready for a more advanced form of meditation. But continue with that discipline. Use the analogy of working out, right? If you want to get in better shape, you can't work out once and say, oh, where are the results? It's a discipline. The more you do it, the more you will get out of it. And people ask me, RJ, how do you know some of the stuff that you talk about, that you experience? How do you know this? From sitting in meditation.
Well, thank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you.
You've been listening to Exploring Sacred Places with your host, Julia Pyatt, and her guest, RJ Spina from Santa Fe, New Mexico. For more information on his work, go to ascendtheirfrequencies.com. Special thanks to KRZA Public Radio, connecting communities along the